She lived a long life. It wasn't an easy life, but it was hers. She was beautiful, and her husband told her so. So beautiful, in fact, that other men would have killed to have her, but she loved her husband. She was so committed to her family, when confronted with issues of conception, she encouraged her husband to find a surrogate. In spite of all of the difficulties she faced in trying to get pregnant, she was finally able to have a son. She raised him the best way she knew how, even when life presented unexpected challenges along the way. And even after all of these things, though she never did get to see any grandchildren or even a daughter-in-law, she loved her son and her husband until the day she died. She never had the luxuries she wanted, and truth be told, she only wanted things she really needed. When she died, her husband bought a plot of land just for her, a place to visit far away from everything that reminded him of the difficulties of a life once lived. This was the life of Sarah, our mother. The Torah portion bearing her name, Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah, glosses over the 127 years of Sarah's life in 2 verses. 2 verses afforded to the woman whose body served as a bargaining chip, ensuring her and her husband's safety on multiple occasions. Two verses afforded to the woman whose body fulfilled God's covenant with Abraham. 2 verses to the woman whose husband she saved nearly killed her only begotten son because the God that took her from the comfort and ease of home said to. 2 verses afforded to Sarah, who could do nothing but laugh in all that she faced, who could do nothing but laugh because she knew the world would scoff at her. This is not just Sarah's story, but this is the story for every woman who, as they sat and listened, thought, "Me too." Me too are 2 words that invoke a sense of empathy and sympathy. To be able to relate to someone else's story is the ideal paragon of human interaction. To be able to hear the heart-wrenching story and inwardly think to yourself, "Me too," when all you want to do is stand up on a chair and scream at the top of your lungs. Me too. You know you aren't the only one who feels that way. You aren't alone. And as you nod your head in acknowledgement, look around. You already know that there are a group of people who are unable to acknowledge what it is we're talking about. There are a group of people who are unable to say, "Me too." This same group of people who thinks to themselves, "I'm not really sure what all the fuss is about." I don't really have time to address this issue, but I will quickly remind you and admonish you with the fact that each leaf experiences the wind differently. While each leaf experiences the wind differently, there are many leaves who share similar experiences in the wind. And those leaves will tell you that sometimes the wind howls. Sometimes the wind is so unforgiving and so painful that the leaf feels like it might be plucked from the very branch it has always known, only to come tumbling down. Sarah was a leaf at the top of a tree, reaching high above the canopy, hanging on for dear life at every moment. Sarah's memory should be for a blessing and should be for a reminder. But a reminder of what? The other day, I was taking the train home from school as I do most every day. I looked up from my book and I saw a beautiful picturesque scene. A young mother, worn from a long day at work, cradling her young toddler, clearly exhausted from playing all day at daycare. She was fast asleep in her mother's arms, and you could see the exhaustion in this mother's eyes, silently praying that her baby would stay sleeping in spite of the rumbling tracks. She clutched her baby close to her breast as the train barreled down the tracks. The train slowed and stopped at the Hollywood and Vine station, and a man wielding his guitar climbed aboard the train. He stood directly in front of that weary mother, holding her peaceful child, and everyone on the train knew what was about to happen. The train began to pull away from the station. In a booming voice, such that everyone could hear, he announced that he would be singing a song about moments and how he wished they last a little longer. I watched as the mother shuddered in anticipation. She pressed her hands over her baby's ears to muffle the sound of the mediocre, loud, and incredibly insensitive guitar and vocals that now filled the rumbling train car. As the baby started to squirm, I stood up. I I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up to him, and I got within 8 inches of this guy in order to firmly explain to him that this little baby was trying to sleep. He just kept playing. I felt so defeated. I knew just for a moment what she felt. I felt the defeat in this woman's eyes, in this mother's eyes. When the man finished, he lifted his guitar and proceeded to pass around the collection plate. I sat there stunned and watched as he got off the train. He cheekily exclaimed to those who remained on the train, "Thanks for listening, and thanks for the advice." As the train started to pull away from the station, I turned to catch a glance of the mother's eyes. Silently, she mouthed the words, "Thank you." In that moment, I couldn't think of anything other than, "I'm sorry." I felt like such a failure. It was so upsetting to me, but I can only begin to imagine what it's like for a young professional woman caring for a baby, all while having to endure situations like this on a regular basis. As I got off the train and climbed the escalator toward daylight, the sky seemed a little dimmer. The clouds hung a little lower. I felt as though I still feel as though I'm carrying a little bit of that mother's anguish with me. Why is it so hard to be aware of the other leaves on this giant tree of ours? Why is it so hard to remember to treat each other the way in which we would like to be treated? This is kindergarten stuff. When I was a little kid, not so long ago, I had to learn a lot of things I didn't really know. How to dress myself, tie my shoes, how to jump a rope, how to smile for a picture without looking like a dope. But of all the things I learned, my favorite of them all was the little poem hanging on the kindergarten wall. Of all you learn here, remember this the best. Don't hurt each other and clean up your mess. Take a nap every day, wash before you eat. Hold hands, stick together, look before you cross the street. Remember the seed in the little paper cup. First the root goes down and the plant grows up. Lately, I've been worried as I look around and see an awful lot of grown-ups acting foolish as can be. I know there's lots to learn I still haven't mastered yet. Still, it seems it's real important stuff that grown-ups soon forget. I know we'd all be better off if we could just recall that little poem hanging on the kindergarten wall. Of all you learn here, remember this the best. Don't hurt each other and clean up your mess. Take a nap every day, wash before you eat. Hold hands, stick together, look before you cross the street. Remember the seed in the little paper cup. First the root goes down and the plant grows up. Shabbat Shalom.